Hey everyone, welcome to the KE Report in a company introduction to Great Pacific Gold, chatting with the president and CEO, Greg McCunn. The company is traded on the TSX Venture Exchange under the symbol GPAC, on the OTCQX under the symbol FSXLF, and the Frankfurt Exchange V3H. Now, the company is focused in Papua New Guinea, flagship project being the Wild Dog Project. They also have another project that is pretty much surrounding the K92 Kainantu Mine, as well as upcoming spin-out of an Australian project. All this for us to talk about. One other thing to note is that the company has just raised just short of $17 million through a private placement that was closed in July, which gives the company a lot of run room for exploration and news flow. So, Greg, a lot for us to get to here. Let's start off with a little bit of the history of the project. From my understanding, used to be focused in Australia, now has made the shift to Papua New Guinea. Take us through what happened, please.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, Corey. Yeah, as you mentioned, Great Pacific Gold exploration stage company focused in Papua New Guinea now. And this company was originally founded, though, on the basis of projects in Australia. And so it's only been recently, over the last, call it 3 years, that we've started to shift our focus into Papua New Guinea by acquiring the Wild Dog and Kesar project, as you mentioned, the opening. And look, there's a long history of Papua New Guinea experience. The company was originally founded by John Lewins and Brian Slusarchuk. John, as you know, the CEO at K92, currently was the chairman of the company, and Brian Slusarchuk, one of the guys who put the deal originally together to buy the K92 mine from Barrick back in 2013, was the CEO. They saw some real promise in projects that they had an opportunity to acquire in Papua New Guinea and did so. All of this was a little too close to home for John, so he stepped off the board at that time. And Brian brought me in about a year ago now to really sort of formalize the real focus on our assets in Papua New Guinea, which when we get into them and start talking about them, you'll see we have at least 2 projects here that could each in themselves be company makers.
All right, let's talk Wild Dog then. I understand there's some historic mining, some historic drilling here. Not a whole lot of mining, but take us through what drew you to this project and some of the history behind it.
For sure, Corey. So Wild Dog, as you say, it's not a greenfield exploration site. It has seen some exploration over the past decades, as well as some small scale oxide mining. Wild Dog is located on the island of New Britons in the East New Britain province. So this is part of the same volcanic caldera as Lihir and Simberi, as well as to some extent Bougainville. So we're talking about a really prolific region here. What the small scale mining was able to do is expose some of the epithermal vein structure here. And Wild Dog basically has 2 main targets on it right now. One is a extensive epithermal gold copper system called the Wild Dog Structural Corridor. It's got large scale, over 15 kilometers of strike length and penetrating down to at least 1,000 meters of depth. That's interpreted by recent geophysics. It's got high grade, which was evidenced by that previous mining operation and our current drilling. This is where we're focusing our drilling efforts right now. In addition to the epithermal, though, there's also an adjacent, very interesting looking porphyry target that has really lit up a recent mobile MT geophysics survey. That target's over 1,000 meters in diameter and penetrates down to over 2,000 meters as it's interpreted on the geophysics. So we're excited about this epithermal porphyry combo. We're drawing the analogy to sort of a Wafi Golpu, if you like, which is, of course, the Newmont Harmony joint venture also in Papua New Guinea.
Okay, so the company is drilling. What are you targeting with the current drill program?
Yeah, so we're trying to focus now. As we said, this is a huge target at Wild Dog with this epithermal vein system. We're focusing on that first. There is near surface mineralization here, which we're currently drilling and targeting about 10% of the overall epithermal belt. So if we have about 15 kilometers of strike length, we're focusing on one target called Sinavit. That's about 1.5 kilometers long. To date, we've drilled 8 holes there. We've got results back from 7, and we're seeing some very, very good mineralized intercepts. The first hole was that we drilled. We hit 7 meters at 11.3 gram per ton gold equivalent. That's from 65 meters. There's some very strong copper intercepts in here as well. So when we talk gold equivalent, we're talking predominantly copper and gold values. For example, hole 6 hit 3.5 meters of 4.9 gram per ton gold plus 4.9% copper. And Corey, that was from 12 meters. So we're talking very close to surface mineralization at very high grades here. So the drilling program is rolling along very nicely now, and we're starting to generate some very good results from what's only a small portion of the overall target.
Okay, so you're not going after the porphyry potential right now then?
Not right now. So the porphyry is something that we need to do some ground truthing on here. We've got, as I said, a very nice geophysics anomaly over that porphyry. There has been boots on the ground there in the past, rock samples collected. There's some running some nice grade with some very nice outcrops. The float material here that you would see, classic porphyry. So, but we're going to spend the next 4 or 5 months sort of ramping up our efforts on that. It's about 1,300 meters, so 1.3 kilometers to the west of the epithermal system. And so this is sort of like a classic porphyry epithermal setup. Very, very keen to do some more work on that, but likely not drilling that until 2026. But as you mentioned, Corey, we are in a very favorable cash position to be able to do some of that exploration work in the near future.
So in terms of the drill program this year, what's the overall size meter-wise? How many holes? And what's the total distance, the total strike length, and even depth that you're going to be testing?
So we're going to continue to focus on this 1.5 kilometer Synovit target, starting to test it deeper down to 150 to 200 meters. Our initial program that we announced, which was back in May when we started this, was for us to drill about 2,500 meters here. You're going to see us, Corey, we're busy reevaluating that. We haven't announced it yet, but certainly we're going to see us expand that so that we keep drilling right through to the end of the year, likely between 25 and 30 holes, and probably close to 5,000 meters on this Synovit target before we eventually step out to the north. There's the target located immediately to the north, adjacent to the Synovit target, called Kavasuki, which has also had some historical drilling on it, some very interesting intercepts. No small scale mining though, but that will be likely phase 2 of our drilling, which will be in early 2026 once we finish up at Synovit.
Okay, so the Synovit target, is this where the past drilling and that small scale mining occurred?
Correct. We've got small oxide pits that have been mined here. There's very little, as you know, the geology in Papua New Guinea, very new, so not a lot of oxide material here. The past operators were trying to heap leach this, which worked quite well in the oxides, but as I've already mentioned, there's a lot of copper here and predominantly sulfides, so heap leaching only worked for a very short period of time. So really, when you look at this, it looks more like the world's largest exploration trench, where we've got 5 meters by about 1,000 meters of exposure of the mineralization, and you can see this sulfide vein structures outcropping in the previous pit floor. We're busy drilling underneath that with this program, and so look, there's a potential at Synovit in the geometry. If you do the math, there's a potential for 500,000 to 1 million ounces over that area. So we're going to continue to drill that out in 2025 and early 2026, and then start stepping out to the north even further. Eventually, we'll cover about 3 kilometers, but this is a big project. We'll have to decide at what point we want to start ramping up with more than one diamond drill.
So out of that past drilling, approximately how many meters were drilled, and can you use any of that data? Do you have access to any of the core? Do you have access to the results to guide this current program?
So fortunately, we have access to the drill hole database, which includes grade and obviously collar locations, dips, azimuths, etc. Unfortunately, we don't have any core, we don't have any geology, we don't have any information on lithology or alteration. So it's really important, this drill program, to firm up our historical data knowledge here. And there's about 35,000 meters overall, Corey, of previous drilling here that's usable. Some of the drilling that was even more than that was done on a very shallow drilling in the portion of the deposit that was already mined in the oxides. So that's not useful, obviously, but there is a significant quantity of drilling here that we just need to gain confidence in because we don't have the full data set.
So Greg, would you say that The discovery has been made here through some of the past drilling, the past mining, and even your early on results. So now it's more about figuring out maybe where the higher grade is, how big the system could be, how deep it could be, more follow up on, again, the discovery.
Exactly, Corey. This is a brownfield site where, we know there's high grade mineralization. We just didn't appreciate the extent of it until we flew this with the mobile MT geophysics survey, which we did in May, which outlined this 15-kilometer strike length of very high priority targets, largely unexplored. Less than 10% of it has had any work done on it. And then, as you know, the mobile MT has the ability where we can penetrate down to up to 1,000 meters, and we see this strong signal continuing to at least that depth. So there's this huge potential here to turn this into a 5 to 10 million ounce deposit. That's the type of scale that we're talking about here. So whilst we've got the tip of the iceberg, there's still a lot of work to do to uncover the rest of it.
Let's talk capital management then in terms of this drill program. What approximately are your drill costs and how much are you planning on spending out of that almost 17 million that you just raised?
Yeah, so our true drilling costs here are running about $350 Canadian a meter. That's reasonably low cost drilling. The topography is favorable here. We have good infrastructure. These are also reasons this will be a great site to build a mine. We're only located about 45, 50 kilometers from a deep water port at Rabaul. So bringing the drill and materials in. There's a paved road that goes almost all the way to site. Just the last 12 kilometers is our access road, which is sealed gravel. So, easy, relatively easy working here and relatively low cost. Having said that, there's a lot of work to be done here. So, we're going to finish this year in very good shape, still in our treasury and well positioned for 2026. Longer term, obviously, treasury management is going to require, this is a big project that's going to require a significant amount of drilling to really delineate what here could be a world-class resource. So at the right time, we'll obviously need to raise more money when the time's right, but we're a long ways from that at this stage.
Hey, fair enough. You did raise that money at 45 cents. So I do want to just discuss that because the share price has come off just a little bit from that price. How did that financing come together? That's a big financing package for a company.
That is a big financing package. And I was very pleased with the outcome of this financing. The goal here for me was to really attract this stock was largely retail held with some, cornerstone positions by some of the founders and some strategic insiders, but really no institutional holding as of earlier this year. And so we were able to attract some very good key institutions to come into this. Franklin was the lead order here. They now own about 6.7% of the company. We had Commodity Capital come in a big way, Ixios, Libra, 9 Point. So we've got some really solid institutional names who now own 16, 17% of the company. So we're very pleased with that outcome. There was still a retail component, and we did fill the book to over 20 million was the original book. We were limited by the life exemption that we were using to the 16.9 million we raised. So we tried to keep this to strategic long-term investors, but there was a half warrant, Corey, so maybe a little bit of leakage in some of the stock after the close of the transactions caused us to pull off a little bit, but we've got some real steady positive news flow coming here over the next several months. So I'm expecting September and October to be a big push for us, and we'll see some real growth in the stock price.
All right, there are a couple other assets we should talk about. That Kesar project, as I said, right around K92's mine. What's the strategy with this project? Give us a little background on that too, please.
Yeah, absolutely. So yes, Kesar, very strategically located. It's immediately to the northwest, contiguous and a long strike from K92's Kainantu mine. It's on the same structural trend as Cora and Judd, which are the two main deposits, the epithermal deposits that are being mined at Kainantu, one of the most profitable mines, I believe, right now in the world. And we're seeing the same geophysical structure cutting right across our Kesar property. And so there's a very strong potential here for more epithermal discoveries. We did run a small diamond drill program here from November through to April of this year. We drilled about 3,500 meters, had very successful, geologically successful drill results where we had gold in every hole, in some cases, even some high grade intercepts, but just not really hitting into the heart of the system. And One of our board of directors, Chris Mueller, who's the ex-vice president of exploration at K92 and was part of the discovery team of Cora and Judd, really thinks Kesar is a high priority target for us. He sees a lot of similarities between what he saw originally when he was drilling off these deposits at Kainantu to what we have here. So we're busy. We flew this with Mobile MT Geophysics in April. We're busy now following up some ground truthing, and at some point we expect to be in here with a much lower, smaller scale program than obviously we're running at Wild Dog. But one key drill intercept here would make this something that we believe would be a very strategic asset for the operators in the region to have to own. And we also have a nice land package to the south of K92 as well that's on the same structural trend called Arao. So we've got them sandwiched a bit. So again, these are structural assets that really could complement our flagship Wild Dog project.
Any carrying costs or work commitments that you have at Kesar or that land package to the south that investors should be aware of that would consume some of your capital?
Nothing significant, Corey. So we spent money drilling here this year, so we've more than satisfied at both Arao and Kesar all of our work commitments right through till the middle of 2026. So nothing coming on the forefront, but we are going to keep a slow burn of. We've got 2 geologists at Kesar out with boots on the ground, doing mapping, soil sampling around the geophysical anomalies, and really flushing those out for potential drilling in 2026.
All right, let's also talk about the Australian projects. We just had news that you sold another one of those for a little under $2 million, and you also have a spin out of this Walhalla project. What's going on here?
Yeah, so as you said, we had a nice land portfolio of projects in Australia that we were able to monetize very successfully, mostly for cash and also for some, it would just turning out to be fairly valuable holdings in other junior mining companies that are now exploring on the properties we used to hold. In total, I think we raised about $8 million from these asset sales, including $2 million, which we just recently closed on. What we basically did was monetize some streams of cash and shares that were coming in the future. So that's all cleaned up nicely. The last asset in our portfolio was called Walhalla. We were wondering what to do with this strategically, and we've landed on, how can we create value for GPAC shareholders directly? And, some of the past sales were generating cash, so indirectly benefited GPAC shareholders, and then we didn't have to raise dilutive financing to do exploration work. But this is a proposal to spin this out in a fairly juicy 1-to-1 spin out. So if you're a shareholder in Great Pacific Gold at the record date, which we expect to set in September, you're going to get a full share in this new company, Walhalla Gold. And Walhalla is a district scale project in Victoria, Australia, over 1,400 square kilometers. So this is, again, a huge land package. It's got a fully permitted drill ready target called Pinnacles on it. So we believe the new company is going to be able to step in here, raise a bit of money in a really robust gold market, and have some success drilling here. And we think this company, when it floats in Q4 this year, could have a value of 20 to 25 cents per GPAC share. That's more than 50% of our market cap right now, as you mentioned, Corey. So, really what you're getting when you invest in Kesar now, it's a trifecta of high grade, fully funded drilling at Wild Dog, strategic land package around K92 with Kesar and Arao, and a full share coming in this really up and coming, exciting Australian gold exploration company that is bound to have some success here with the drill program at Pinnacles.
All right, Greg, that takes us through all the projects. Let's talk team then. It's your first time on the show. Give me a little background on you, your history in the resource sector, and anyone else on your team that you want to highlight for us, please.
I've been involved in the mining industry my whole career. I've been a CEO for almost 10 years now, and before that, a CFO for a decade. My probably biggest role was in the founding and creating of the Kainantu Gold Mine, which is now Galiano Gold. I was the CFO there through the conversion of that, through exploration phases, through development, through the financing and the construction of the project. And for over 2 years was the CEO when it transitioned to Galiano Gold. So I've had real success in building mines. I've built 3 mines on 3 different continents. I've seen multiple companies transition from the phase that GPAC is at right now, right through to fully operational. And I've also sold companies where we've exited the story before doing that. So, I'm really excited about the assets that we have here, which is, from my perspective, one of the key building blocks of a great company is assets. The other is, of course, great people. And I've been working very hard getting the team in place. And I think we've now got a great team led by our Vice President of Exploration, Callum Spink. Callum's based in Brisbane, but he spends most of his time flying in and flying out of Papua New Guinea. He's a crackerjack exploration geologist. He spent his entire career working in PNG. He loves the country and loves the geology and knows it really well. And best of all, he brings great connections to really well-known Papua New Guinean geologists. So one of the great things about working in PNG is there's good people there that are trained by big companies like Barrick, Newmont, Harmony, etc. So we've now put in place what I think is one of the best-in-class exploration teams in Papua New Guinea, and we're got the assets to explore, and now we've got the balance sheet to do that. So I think everything's come together very nicely.
All right, Greg. I think that wraps us up. Nice introduction here. The flagship being this Wild Dog Project, and sounds like news continuing out of the drill program and some of the other work that you're doing to build up that porphyry target and finalize that Australian property spin out. I'll post a link to the Great Pacific Gold website in the show notes. Everyone feel free to click that link, read over the company presentation, send me any questions you have for Greg, and I'll follow up as we get some more news, especially on the drill result front. So Greg, thank you again for your time.
Thanks, Corey. Look forward to next time.